The newly released Korean horror comedy Handsome Guys is one of the funniest films of the year. It all begins when a group of young men and women are having a blast in their car, only to accidentally run over a black goat. Instead of panicking, they find it amusing and even take pictures. Little do they know, they've just become sacrifices to a demon that's about to awaken. Jae-pil and Park Sang-goo, two guys who consider themselves handsome, have spent 10 years saving every penny to buy a Western-style villa. Excited, they hit the road, dreaming about the idyllic life ahead of them, but their trip hits a snag when the corpse of a black goat blocks their way. As they're trying to move the goat, a patrol car pulls up. Chief Choi and Officer Nam saw the two carrying a blood-stained bag, so they immediately got out of the car to conduct a routine check.
그만! 왜? 야, 뭐 맞지?
염소. 염소, 흑염소, 까매요.
Once their suspicions are cleared, they let the two go but can't shake the feeling that something's off. Chief Choi was unimpressed by their rough, suspicious appearance and decided to keep monitoring them. When Jae-pil and Sang-goo finally arrive at the villa, they're furious to find it looks nothing like the photos. They want to throttle the real estate agent, but he quickly suggests they check the interior. The house, it turns out, was once the home of an American missionary and is currently managed by the local church. The priest is sick and wants to sell it, offering all the furniture along with the house, but as the trio enters the house, they realize the furnished villa is actually filled with old junk. Despite this, Sang-goo is oddly delighted with the place and signs the contract without even negotiating. While cleaning up, Jae-pil and Sang-goo discover a basement. Cautiously, they head down and find strange symbols carved into the floor.
아니.
They jokingly assume the previous owner was some kind of art major. To their surprise, they also find a gun with silver bullets inside, which they reckon must be worth something. They agree to return it to the previous owner through the agent, but then they remember the black goat's body still in their car. Together, they bury it near the house, unaware that this very act is the key to awakening a demon. Meanwhile, golfer Lee Sung-bin and his friends are vacationing in the same village. They had a run-in with the handsome duo at a supermarket and were terrified by their intimidating looks. Earlier, it was Sung-bin and his friends who had accidentally killed the black goat while goofing off in their car. What they don't know is that by killing the goat, their own fates have been sealed. Oblivious, they continue to party from day to night. In the evening, Sung-bin and Mina, who don't know each other well, sit together in the living room. Mina, feeling a little chilly, is given Sung-bin's jacket as he begins to tell her the village's chilling legend. The village, it turns out, is where Sung-bin's grandfather grew up. The story goes that there was once a girl in the village who could see ghosts. At night, she would run around like a goat, attacking people and throwing the village into chaos. In the end, the villagers caught her and performed an exorcism. Since then, they've affectionately referred to the spirit that possessed the girl as the goat demon. Although Sung-bin didn't believe in ghosts or supernatural forces, he'd heard rumors that his great-uncle was killed by the goat demon. The mischievous demon had even mocked a priest before the priest blew its head off with a single shot. Fearing that Sung-bin might get possessed, his grandfather had spent a fortune to get a protective talisman from a shaman. When Mina returned from the bathroom, she overheard Sung-bin chatting with the guy in glasses. Turns out, Sung-bin had only brought her along to the trip out of courtesy to Boare, and they all secretly looked down on Mina for being a country girl. Furious, Mina stormed off to the riverside and called Boare, but Boare was too busy enjoying a romantic night with her boyfriend to answer. Frustrated, Mina screamed into the night, her voice catching the attention of the handsome duo in Boare's group, who were nearby fishing. Coincidentally, a fish bit the line just as Mina's scream rang out. As Mina watched their clumsy rod reeling technique, she cringed so hard she slipped and fell into the river. Without hesitation, Jae-pil jumped in to save her. When they pulled her out and she remained unresponsive, they frantically administered CPR. Suddenly, Mina opened her eyes and, misunderstanding the situation, thought they were trying to take advantage of her. Yelling and cursing, she tried to run away but ended up slipping and knocking herself out. Panicking, Jae-pil and Sang-goo carried Mina on their backs to find a doctor, a scene that was witnessed from a distance by Bo-ra, who mistook it for a kidnapping. Meanwhile, something had escaped from the basement of the villa and was heading straight for the Black Goat's grave. Bo-ra and her boyfriend rushed back to the villa to inform the others, but instead of worrying about Mina's safety, everyone was more annoyed that she was causing trouble. Songbin suggested calling the police, but when he reached for his phone, he realized it was still in the jacket he had lent Mina. Now, everyone was truly panicking, not because of Mina, but because Songbin's phone contained a lot of compromising videos that could ruin all their lives if exposed. They sent the driver, Byun-jo, to find the police, while the rest set off to track down Mina and retrieve the phone. On his way, Byun-jo had the misfortune of running into the revived Black Goat. Still shaken, he took out all his pent-up frustration from being bullied by Songbin's group on the poor goat sitting in his passenger seat.
야, 이 미친 년도 새끼야! 내가 병신 족밥으로 보이냐? 병신 족밥으로 보이냐고!
The next morning, Mina woke up to find herself wrapped up like a mummy, trying to escape. She was quickly discovered. Convinced her life was over, Mina clung to a pillar, crying hysterically. After some explaining, though, she realized it was all a big misunderstanding. Feeling grateful, she stayed for breakfast and, to make up for the trouble, offered to help out around the house. However, when the boy with glasses saw the scene, he thought she was being attacked. Meanwhile, outside the villa, Jae-pil accidentally sawed into a beehive. As he wildly swung the chainsaw around to fend off the bees, the sight was so terrifying that everyone watching wanted to run home to their mothers. Bo-ra, in a fit of rage, kicked a tree, and a dead branch fell, ending her life. Back in the basement, the strange symbols on the floor began to activate. Meanwhile, Mina, tired of waiting for Bo-ra's call, hesitantly sent her a message, only to discover she'd been blocked. It was now clear their friendship was fake. Sang-goo, misinterpreting Mina's mood, assumed she wanted to leave and awkwardly told her that he couldn't drive. But once his brother Jae-pil returned, they'd take her home. Just then, Jae-pil, his face swollen from bee stings, walked in, complaining to Sang-goo for not getting rid of the beehive earlier. Jae-pil also mentioned that some of Mina's friends had come looking for her but likely ran away because of the giant bees. Mina decided to stay and wait for her friends. Meanwhile, Jae-pil grew jealous as he watched Sang-goo and Mina grow closer while fixing up the house together. In a fit of jealousy, he threw logs into the wood chipper like a maniac, while the others discovered Bo-ra's mutilated body in the woods. They concluded it must be the work of a serial killer showing off his handiwork. Seeing his girlfriend's gruesome fate, Jason swore to get revenge, and Songbin agreed that the killer couldn't be let off easily. Together, the three men returned to the villa and hid nearby, waiting for the right moment to strike. Seeing how arrogant the killer was, the furious trio decided to take matters into their own hands and launched an attack. However, their attempt ended as quickly as it began, and Jason's plan also fell apart almost immediately. The three ascended to heaven one after another, while Mina fainted from the sudden chaos. Meanwhile, the symbols in the basement began to shift once again. Jae-pil and Sang-goo debated whether they should call the police, but the fear of being blamed for 3 deaths made them hesitate. After all, who would believe it was all an accident? Just then, Byun-jo finally showed up with the police. Unaware of the full story, the officers started inspecting the scene outside. Songbin suddenly appeared behind them, revealing that he wasn't dead, he had only been knocked out by an electric shock. He warned the officers that those guys were true psychopaths and urged them to be careful not to fall into their trap. Meanwhile, the commotion outside caught the attention of the handsome duo. Inside the house, Jae-pil and Sang-goo were discussing whether they should turn themselves in, but just as they were about to decide, Chief Choi kicked the door open. The duo tried to cooperate fully as they backed into the living room. However, as Chief Choi reached for his handcuffs, a pillar struck him from behind, and then he scalded his hand with a pot of boiling water. Wounded and disoriented, Chief Choi stumbled out of the house, only for his gun to accidentally fire. igniting a nearby car whose fuel tank had been punctured by a rake. The car burst into flames, and the officer standing next to it was caught in the explosion. Jae-pil rushed over to help put out the fire while Sang-goo ran back to the house to fetch water. But the more water they poured, the bigger the flames grew. Suddenly, the police car exploded, and a flying rake impaled Chief Choi in the head. As Sang-goo was relieved to see that Song-bin wasn't dead, things took a dark turn when Song-bin, in a fit of rage, grabbed a gun and started shooting at them. The two scrambled back into the house for cover, but to their horror, Song-bin's group had captured Sang-goo's pet dog. As soon as the fully armed Sang-goo stepped outside, he was shot. Seizing the moment, Jae-pil scooped up the dog, Fung-jio, and bolted. Mina, who had been awakened by the commotion, witnessed the scene in utter confusion. Meanwhile, in the hospital, the priest suddenly regained consciousness, remembering what an older priest had told him years ago. In a panic, he found the book left by Father Baker, which revealed that the demon was prophesied to awaken after 66 years and 6 months precisely now. Jae-pil, still clutching the dog tightly, was tied to a tree and beaten by Song-bin's group. Sang-goo and Mina arrived just in time, with Mina desperately explaining that it was all a misunderstanding and that they were good people. Tearfully, she expressed how sad she was that everyone had ended up like this just because they were trying to find her. At this point, Song-bin dropped the act, admitting that all he cared about was retrieving his phone. He said he never saw them as friends, treating them like beggars the entire time. Just then, Byung-jo appeared from behind, knocking Song-bin out and grabbing the phone. After years of being bullied, Byung-jo finally stood up for himself. He held the phone and threatened to expose all of their dirty secrets, promising to ruin their lives. With that, he gleefully skipped off into the forest. But in the next moment, Byung-jo came scrambling back, terrified out of his mind. It turned out he had actually seen a ghost. In the darkness, the once dead Boare staggered toward them. Strangely, she didn't attack anyone else but relentlessly pursued Byung-jo. That's when Song-bin suddenly remembered the village legend. The creature was none other than the goat demon. Realizing the legend was true, he bolted immediately. Back at the villa, Song-bin frantically searched for the car keys to escape, but accidentally stumbled upon the gun Jae-pil had hidden. He used the gun to threaten the others, demanding to know where the keys were. Not wanting any trouble, Jae-pil told Mina to give him the keys. When the door opened, they found Byung-jo standing there. Song-bin tried hard to explain what he had just seen, but his babbling left everyone utterly confused. Without warning, Byung-jo lunged straight at Song-bin, targeting him alone. At the last second, Song-bin pulled out the protective talisman his grandfather had given him. Seeing the talisman, even the ghost seemed baffled. The goat demon, however, pounced on Song-bin, biting down on his head. Everyone rushed to help, but in the end, Song-bin couldn't escape his fate and fell onto the demonic symbols in the basement. Just as the group was about to make a run for it, the priest arrived in the nick of time, revealing the true form of the goat demon. The priest recited Bible verses, trying to corner the demon, but without a salt barrier to seal the space. The exorcism failed. In one swift move, the goat demon knocked the priest unconscious. Seeing the oil on the ground, Jae-pil grabbed a lighter and tossed it, thinking they could burn the demon to death. But to their horror, the goat demon emerged unscathed. Worse, it summoned its minions to assist. Jae-pil, determined to buy time, grabbed a sledgehammer and charged at the demon. Sang-goo, inspired by his brave brother, chose to stand by him and rushed in with a chainsaw. The priest told Mina that they needed to find Father Baker's gun, the only weapon capable of killing the goat demon, as it contains silver bullets. Sang-goo managed to take down 2 of the demon's minions, leaving only the goat demon itself. The duo delivered a flurry of blows, thinking they had defeated the demon, but just as they were celebrating, the goat demon made a surprise comeback, viciously attacking them. As the two were about to be beaten to death, Officer Nam rushed over to help. Before sending them to hell, the goat demon decided to reveal a truth known only to the 2 brothers.
너희 둘은 못생겼어.
but they refused to believe a word of his demonic lies. Meanwhile, Mina, searching by the wood chipper, finally found Father Baker's gun, but it was broken, and there were no bullets inside. Just then, the dog's barking caught her attention, and she noticed the last silver bullet lying at its feet. Mina quickly loaded the bullet into a nail gun and, in a critical moment, fired a shot that struck the goat demon square in the head. At that moment, a giant hand appeared from the sky, grabbing the goat demon and whisking it away. As the hand disappeared, the sky brightened, signaling the end of the ordeal. In the aftermath, the handsome duo was declared innocent, thanks to Officer Nam's testimony. And with that, the story concludes. I highly recommend watching the full original film, it's absolutely hilarious.